Hello, everyone. Welcome for this week's session of Protocol Symposium. Today we have Irfan from Interstate.io presenting innovation in blockchains markets, which has to do with application-specific sequencing, based rollup, all these good stuff. So, Irfan, the floor is yours.
Oh yeah, thanks for the intro. Yeah, my name's Irfan. I'm working on Interstate.so. Part of this, I was a tech lead at Snapchat and worked at Amazon. Essentially, what I'm working on, what the team's working on, is making transactions on Ethereum a little bit faster. I'll jump into it. So the inspiration for a pre-confirmation came about when Ethereum was looking at some of the alt L1s like Solana and Sui. Essentially, on Solana, what you have is you don't actually have blocks the way you do on Ethereum. On Ethereum, every 12 seconds, the block proposer gathers all the blocks and submits them all at once. So you have 12-second blocks on Ethereum. Whereas on Solana, you actually have a stream, a continuous transaction stream. There actually, before Jito, there wasn't a way to get MEV. There wasn't MEV on Solana. Instead, you would have essentially like if you wanted to get your transaction included first, what people would do, they'd spam the leader, effectively like someone who wanted to like guarantee inclusion. Instead of on Ethereum where you'd pay a bribe to flash bots, here instead you would instead you would on Solana you would spam the transaction. You just spam the transaction over and over until it was included to the leader. And that's what you hear about transaction spam outages on Solana. But the idea is that Solana is like really clever because instead of having fixed 12-second blocks like Ethereum, it uses a continuous transaction stream, and transactions are stamped as they come in. Jito came about and added like a 200 I think roughly a 200 millisecond delay, and this allows for some MEV to be captured. But essentially, like pre-confirmations came about when Ethereum kind of looked at how Solana was doing things and was like, hey, it'd be great if we could instantly confirm a transaction the way Solana does, and also the way Sui and some of the other Alto ones do it. So that leads us to pre-confirmations. What a pre-confirmation is essentially a promise between the user and a block proposer to include their transaction in an upcoming block. What this means is that if with pre-confirmations, I as the user would essentially go to the upcoming block proposer because on Ethereum there's a list of 32 block proposers that are known ahead of time. Essentially, as a user, I can make an off-chain deal between the proposer uh, and the user to include my transaction in a future slot. So what I can do here, in this case, the user is going up to the next the next upcoming proposer that will accept a preconfer, sending a request and getting a receipt. And essentially, they have a guarantee that their transaction will be included within the next two slots. So the way pre-confirmations work are that if you have, say, like 20% of the network that opts into say 20% of Ethereum network is opted in to be a pre-confirmation provider, within the next 32 slots, you basically have a very, very small chance that no one within the next upcoming 32 slots will accept a pre-confirmation. Basically, with this model, um, it's highly unlikely that no one in the next upcoming 32 slots will accept pre-confer if around 20% of your network is accepting pre-confirmations, which our network is right now. This is 20% of all of Ethereum network. In this case, in the edge case, that none of the upcoming 32 slots have a pre-confirmation provider. What you can do is you can actually pick a block proposer at random, have them be the pre-confer provider, and then wait until the next wait until the upcoming 32 slots have someone who's willing to offer a pre-confer. I'm gonna yeah, is this clear about how what a pre-confirmation is? Effectively, an off-chain agreement between the proposer and the user.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. But right
Okay,
now there's no like incentive to like someone can just lie on their promise. Like
right, yeah. This is usually backed via stake.
yeah.
So effectively, we have a pre-confirmation registry. Um, we have a pre-confirmation registry that effectively acts as a what it does is we take the collateral from each of the proposers. So each of the proposers will have 32 ETH. The proposers can pool their collateral, and actually, even with restaking, what you can do is you can have a restake. You can have the restakers back a certain sets of proposers. So I know the Finoa people, and I know they're good. They're good validator operators. So as an LST, I'm willing to restake on their behalf. Effectively, you can have like a lot of economic security behind the claim of a proposer. So you can use both the proposer's 32 ETH. You can use the restake by like a restaking provider like Carrick or Eigenlayer or Symbiotic, and yeah, and they can essentially and it'll back the proposer's claim. Um, um, what you want to do here is you want to have everyone who's willing to offer pre-confirmation register in your registry. The registry will be an on-chain smart contract that stores that essentially lists all the Ethereum validators that have opted in to become a pre-confirmation to offer pre-confirmations, and this is useful for two things. One is like the lookup. So this single contract will store the details of every validator on Ethereum network that has opted in to become a pre-confer, and also say no one within the next 32 slots is willing to offer a pre-confer. In that case, we can pick one of these proposers at random and have them be the offer. So there's work going on right now that we're doing to finalize the pre-confirmation registry. There's one case where each pre-confirmation provider has their own registry, but the preferred case is that there's like a general purpose one that Ethereum uses, and you essentially have like all pre-confirmation providers registered under a single registry. So the discussion about pre-confirmations is also relevant to base rollups. Tycho, for example, a base like Tycho is very interested in implementing pre-confirmations. So obviously um, there's a spectrum from centralized to decentralized. Single sequencer rollups are the most centralized. Shared sequencer rollups are where you have like one sequencer shared amongst multiple rollups, or like a set of rotating sequencers. And then people just figured, since we're already building a shared sequencer network, which means we need to get like a lot of nodes to act as shared sequencers, why don't we just go all the way and just use the L1 validator as the sequencer? And a base rollup, essentially, this is an image bar from Spire Labs, a base rollups team. Essentially, the idea here is that why don't we use the Ethereum network, the L1 as a sequencer, and essentially what a base rollup is you have the L2 you have the L2 transactions ordered by the L1 block proposers as well. This actually leaks the MEV to the proposer. This allows there's various shielding techniques you can do, but some of the benefits of this to Ethereum are that with current rollup designs, with a centralized like base and Arbitrum make about $100 million a year in like sequencing priority fees. With a base rollup, some of these fees move back to the L1. On the rollup side, the base rollup benefits from like interacting with L1 state. So um, with base sequencing, the app can interact directly with Ethereum state. With a centralized sequencer, like a yeah, like some of the like most L2s, um, um, you essentially need to bridge before you can interact with L1 state. You need to bridge into the L1. Like on a base rollup like Tycho, you can directly call a smart contract on the L1 from the L2. Um, um, it's like an extension of Ethereum itself. So in the pre-confirmation use case for base rollups, Tycho essentially divides um, Ethereum's 12-second block times into 4 3-second subslots. The benefit of preconfirmations to base rollups is that if you're a base rollup, you want to save to Ethereum state. You want to write down to Ethereum state. However, you can only do that within the 12-second interval. So your block times are constrained by Ethereum's block times. Whereas like someone like Arbitrum has like a 250 millisecond block time. As a base rollup, you have a 12-second block time. The way you can reduce the block time is by using something like preconfirmations. Unichain actually has a prod implementation. Unichain has a prod implementation of a 250 millisecond block time. Unichain obviously isn't a base rollup, but you can do this for regular rollups as well. But the idea here is that like essentially if you're an L2, you can shorten the block times. Essentially the time it takes to save your state to the L1 to as quickly as Solana. Like Solana transactions are roughly 250 milliseconds. You can do the same thing with preconfirmations on the L1. For base rollups is especially important because unlike regular rollups, they need off-chain actors to submit the block. They also have like much longer block times because they're based. Essentially, at the end of each subslot, the preconfirmer builds and publishes the Tyco L2 block, and then Tyco users listen to preconfirmed L2 blocks to know the result of their L2 transaction. Does the base rollup, does the use case of preconfs in base rollups make sense?
Yeah, it's pretty clear. Unless someone has questions, but there's no questions in the chat so far, so you're good.
Cool. Cool. So this brings us to inclusion versus execution preconfirmations. So so with inclusion preconfirmations, this is similar to an inclusion list, where effectively the it guarantees that your transaction will be included in the next block, but it doesn't guarantee that the transaction will be executed. What this means is that there's a chance that the transaction could revert. So if you submit if you, for example, submit a Uniswap transaction and the params are incorrect, the transaction could revert. With an execution preconfirmation, usually an off-chain actor has pre-executed the transaction. This could be someone like a block builder, and you get the guarantee you get a guarantee of the end state. So an execution preconfirmation guarantees the end state of your transaction, whereas the inclusion preconfirmation only guarantees that your transaction will be included, will be attempted to be executed within the next block. This is similar to like being added to the inclusion list versus guaranteeing inclusion in the next block. Yeah, so one of the biggest issues with preconfirmations is their pricing. So there are two types of preconfirmations. You have just-in-time preconfirmations and ahead of time. Just-in-time preconfirmations are for the upcoming block. So Ethereum block times are 12 seconds. With Orbit SSF, with Orbit committees and SSF, there's an effort to reduce block times.
Sorry to interrupt. I see a hand that's raised in the participants.
Please go for it.
Oh yeah, thank you. So I have a question on the different type of pre-confirmation. So for the execution pre-confirmed, I wonder, for example, that can only happen for the next block. If say like you are trying to book a pre-confirmation in a few slots, like not the next slot, then you cannot give the execution pre-confirmed, right? Because you don't know like what will happen, what will be the state root after the next block or next a few blocks.
Yeah. Inclusion preconfirmations are like guaranteeable in any slot, even like the 30-second slot from now. whereas execution preconfirmations, the ideal way it'd be done is that for the upcoming block, the proposer has preconfirmed a set of transactions, and they can just stick this transaction in the top of the block and then execute, and then know it's safe. There's even some designs that actually use like, so in summary, you're right. Yes, there's some designs that actually have like a sidechain approach. So one of the ways that this is like done is, one of the ways that some folks guarantee execution preconfs is they have like a fork of Ethereum state in like a parallel L1. So you have like Ethereum fork alt L1, and then you have like Ethereum itself. And one of the ways to do this, one of the ways to guarantee an execution preconf is when you receive an incoming transaction, you have a fork of Ethereum state. You execute the transaction on your fork, and then you submit the transaction into the proposer, and then you can guarantee the execution preconf. The downside is obviously you have like you're maintaining a fork of Ethereum. The other way to guarantee an execution preconf is you can have the builder, you can have the block builder build a block, so the proposer can give the transaction to the block builder. The block builder will build a block incrementally, and they'll include this transaction as well. Does that help? But in short, the answer is yes. It's harder to give an execution preconf 32, like, and you can't guarantee it for all types of transactions. For example, like something like Uniswap, like if you're doing a Uniswap trade with like max slippage like 2% or something, there's no guarantee that that pool will like be at that level like 32 slots from now, right? So you can't guarantee the output state.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. And then just one small quick follow-up question. So do you see like in the pre-confirmed design, like you will mix different type of pre-confirmations, like for inclusion pre-confirmed and execution pre-confirms?
Would you mix them?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Please go ahead. Okay, cool. Yeah. For inclusion preconfs, they're like much easier to give. They're similar to inclusion lists, and they're like much easier to give. For execution preconfs, obviously, there's much more off-chain state. Like there's another off-chain actor involved. Even the person guaranteeing the execution preconf would have to be like another off. So someone outside of the block proposer. Like it's very hard for the proposer to do the extra work of building the block locally, because it will require them to run larger machines, and most validators are running like pretty thin, so they want to like reduce costs as much as possible. So obviously they're not building blocks, so guaranteeing execution preconf would need to be guaranteed by a third party who's not the proposer. So you are adding like another trust assumption, and then it's like another point of failure. If the guarantor of the execution so in terms of like mixing and matching the preconfs, like inclusion preconfs can be given quite freely. Execution preconfs, you can only guarantee them for the upcoming block. There might be cases where you don't want to guarantee them, like if you don't have time to re-execute the transaction, you might not want to guarantee them. If you want something faster, you might not want to give them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Please interrupt more. Thank you for the question. Cool. We have so let's do the pre-confirmations. So pre-confirmation pricing is actually like one of the biggest question marks. It is the big hairy question that all pre-confirmation protocols are actually struggling with, or not struggling with, but like it's yet to be answered. And we believe we have an answer for how this will work. So there are two types of pre-confirmations. There are just-in-time preconfs and ahead-of-time preconfs. Just-in-times are for the upcoming block in less than 12 seconds. There's an effort to reduce block times and to 5 seconds, and give finality guarantee in one slot. This will be really powerful. So ideally in the near future on Ethereum, you'll be able to get a pre-confirmation instantly, and then within 5 seconds, your transaction will be finalized. So this is being worked on actively, and ideally in the near future on Ethereum, you'll be able to get like 5-second confirmations and like instant preconf, which will make like Ethereum really cool. So ahead of time, so the formula for calculating the profit to the validator from a preconf is the preconf tip plus the MEV extractable from the preconfirmed transaction. So the MEV extractable from the transaction was just included, minus the opportunity cost. So when you give away a preconf, the validator is like giving up the right to include one other transaction, and so a preconf is dependent on there being like a certain number of transactions per block that are actually not MEV valuable. And you can kind of guess the the number of transactions within a block that are not MEV extractable, in our view, is highly dependent on the number of waiting transactions in the mempool. So if there's a lot of transactions in the mempool, and especially during like peak activity, it might not even be possible to get a preconf unless it's very high priced, because if there's many transactions waiting in the mempool, it's almost a guarantee that one of them will be more valuable than the preconf itself. So the proposer needs to basically guess at the amount of non-MEV extractable transactions that there will be in the upcoming block, and then guarantee the preconf now. So the proposer is taking on like a futures risk where they're selling you space now, but taking on the risk that at settlement time something more valuable will come along. I think this risk is relatively low because I think it's in our case we're building a model that predicts the value of the upcoming block based on input features. So we think the most important features will be the number of waiting transactions in the mempool. 2 is the source of the incoming transaction, so these are DEX transactions. And then other variables that we're considering is time of day, impeding high traffic events. So as a preconfirm provider, you are taking on the risk of opportunity cost of inclusion. So we see 2 worlds with preconfirmations. So Justin Drake initially said that like the majority of transactions on Ethereum will be preconfs. We think this is possible, but I don't think it'll happen on day one. That's because one, we think the validator should start off conservatively and initially only allow preconfirmations for some higher value transactions. So, for example, if the user like really wants to mint a certain NFT, like BYC or something, they're willing to pay like high value for the for like a critical event that needs inclusion. These buyers are willing to bid high, and it's highly unlikely that the proposer loses out on block value by providing this preconfirmation. Also keep in mind that like there's talk about enshrined PBS. So the economics of preconfs will change once like ePBS goes through. So and like there's a belief in the in ETH research that that MEV will eventually move to the apps than the users. It's currently all captured by the block proposers. So right now we think that like effectively the proposer will charge a relatively higher fee, and they'll send out the preconfirmation when there's a critical event that needs inclusion, and the buyer generally will need to bid a bit higher, like $1 or more. But we think over time we will move towards everyday preconfirmations. This means that like every user will by default send a preconfirmation transaction. So this will be something like 1 cent to 10 cents per transaction. This will take time because again, this is a type of blockspace feature. So if the proposer consistently sells too much of the block in advance, they could actually start losing money from preconfirmations because they've effectively given like this. They've given away too many transactions in the upcoming block that could be MEV extractable. Yeah. So basically, initially we start high with the pricing, and then like gradually lower it as we've proven that the block is more valuable.
Sorry to interrupt. I also have a question. So I want to understand like whether the preconfirmation will guarantee the order or not, or just like include like for inclusion preconfirm type. So does that guarantee the order or just guarantee the inclusion?
For inclusion, it guarantees just inclusion. So
Okay.
there's like people like XGA have talked about like A block space versus like B block space. And this is like an effort to, and this is an effort to essentially like split the block into like high value into top of block, and then like and bottom of block. And this is basically a scheme to like the everyday preconfs can go in the bottom, and then maybe some high value, high priority can go on top, and then they can have like separate bidding processes. This is to say that initially the point of preconf is for inclusion. If you want priority, that is like that's more complicated for pricing. Yeah, but there's been approaches like this to like split the block in two pieces and then sell from the top and sell from the back. Yeah. You probably ideally want to still extract MEV from the included preconf. So ideally, the block proposer would just get to decide where they put it, so they still get MEV from the transaction. Yeah. If you want to like not give it front run, you probably have to pay the bribe for flash bots on top of this.
Yeah.
Precon. Yeah. Sorry.
So yeah, I'm thinking like if the inclusion preconfirms doesn't guarantee the order, so you can always, I mean, the block builder can always include some of the final transactions into, say, like I want to add additional pre-confirm transaction. Is that possible? Or that pre-confirm transaction is guaranteed actually accepted by the proposer, so the builder actually cannot tweak the list.
Could you say a question again?
So I'm just thinking like if the builder can easily, so if the pre-confirmed transaction doesn't guarantee the order, can the builder like just look at those transactions and then try to
Front run?
yeah, just like add a few more pre-confirmed transaction and then extract MEV from those pre-confirmed transaction, because it seems like they can reorder those pre-confirmed transactions and then try to maximize its MEV profit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's like the possibility that if you're submitting, yeah, you're exactly right. Yes, the with the inclusion preconf, the proposer can still extract MEV from your transaction. And we actually want this. We want the proposer to still be able to extract MEV because we want to make this as profitable as possible, and we want to make this as cheap as possible. To like, we want to make it cheap for the user to buy a preconf and like still profitable for the validator. So it's like good the validator can still like extract MEV from the included transaction. Yeah. So yes. So there'll be MEV extracted from the inclusion preconf. The other point was about like if the transaction's priority and the proposer can view the transaction in advance, there's a risk that you could get front run. So you don't want to do anything that's like signaling, right? So for certain types of sensitive transactions, you would probably not want them to be pre-confirmed. This applies to like I don't know if you're making some sort of announcement, I don't know, some sort of on-chain announcement or something that like yeah, if you're Vitalik, you're putting out a tweet like I'm quitting or something, you probably don't want to like send that as a pre-confirmation, because like somebody could front run that news. Maybe if you're sending like a very large yeah, if you're sending like a very large swap and you need Uniswap, you probably just want to, you actually could send that as a pre-confirmation, but you also probably want to pay like the MEV bribes to flashbots. Yeah, for certain types of transactions, there's the risk the proposer will snoop and that they will like use that information in some way. There's also like other latency games. So yeah, we can call these like latency games. There's like a few of these. One is that proposer sees your transaction and front runs you. This is healthy because we want proposer to be profitable and get to MEV. Eventually, over time, there will be like out of protocol changes. In protocol changes will like enshrine PBS and like not allow proposers to extract as much. But we as an out of protocol provider cannot do anything that causes like proposers to lose money because they just stop using us.
I'm curious, like so to this, like, do you think it's proposer to extract the profit or the builder, or maybe that's the same because like, because I'm thinking like the proposer usually don't run the MVB searcher themselves, so it's eventually like the builder. So kind of like a more concrete question is like, is the pre-confirmed list public to the all of the external parties, or just only proposer knows?
Is a preconfirmation public to everyone who's a proposer? Yeah, it's just public to the proposer. I mean, you're sending it directly to the proposer. The proposer is the only person that needs to know, and then the preconfirmation relay. Depending on how the design of the preconfirmation is, like the relay may or may not know, and the proposer will definitely know. Yeah. But the proposer is getting all the bribes, right? After the block is built from the centralized block builder, the proposer is getting all the bribes right now. Like the idea is like over time, the bribes will move to the app and then back to the user as like MEV rebates.
I see.
But the other latency game the proposer could play is they just wait as long as possible before giving the preconf. This is so that like they can just like have the optionality like to like deny you. And then this should be like enforced by the relay. This should be like stopped by the relay, like enforced by relay with like some sort of punishment mechanism for delays, for repeated delays. Yeah, the proposer could just like this is like a real problem because the whole point of the preconf is to get instant response, and if they're waiting like 500 milliseconds, then like it's bad UX. Yeah, so here we can discuss like multi relay. So in our view, proposers should run multiple relays. Will run multiple relays. And then they will take the relay with the highest bid. So the way the setup works is on Interstate you run your own validator and then you run our sidecar. The sidecar like corresponds to the user and hands out the preconfirmation, and then we have we have an RPC that sits on our server that essentially handles pricing of the preconfirmation. So we'll let the validator know what they should price the preconfirmation at. For example, you can use something like run bolt sidecar with us, which is another provider. And essentially, what we do is we will have we will essentially send back the information about essentially we will collect the total number of preconfirmations the validator is provided, and then send them back to the to use in our pricing models. So we essentially interface with other preconfirmation relays to understand how many preconfs the validator is given out, and then use that to better inform pricing. Yeah. So preconfirmations are one type of proposer commitment. Are like one type of proposer commitment. There are many. There's other use cases for proposer commitments. So these are a few that we're excited by. And a proposer commitment like is implemented physically as just like another sidecar or another module that sits alongside the validator and attests to on-chain state. Yeah. So preconf boost, which we're building, layer 2 boost. This is actually in production by there's an implementation by Flashbots that allows this, essentially allows Unichain to have 250 millisecond block times. there's like a T-based off-chain compute. T's are like a half step towards ZK. So while we're waiting for ZK to become faster, T is just like a trust execution environment, which is like a sectioned off portion of an Intel chip. And essentially, like, nobody can see what happens in this execution environment. Purportedly, there's some some of the edge cases with T's are that sometimes they're set up incorrectly. Sometimes there's some failure where like data leaks. But in general, the idea is like they're like a closed off execution environment where no one can see what's being executed inside. So with Unichain today, Unichain saves state to Ethereum every 250 milliseconds. They've effectively in production reduced the block times to 250 milliseconds for the rollup. Yeah, it's valuable because you don't need to wait 12 seconds to save state to get L1 finality guarantees. You can get it much faster. We are excited by other types of proposer commitments like attestation boosts. Here, like something like EigenLayer lets you borrow the economic security of Ethereum, but this will let you borrow the physical and geographic security of Ethereum. So you can essentially attest to off-chain state via a set of rotating attesters. For example, this can be used in oracles. If you want to attest to the output of a prediction market, you can have like every Ethereum validator attest this output, and if any of them disagree, then you found like a we like TEs. We like sequencing. So you can have a centralized sequencer, then attest the correctness of the sequencer's claims on decentralized validator set. You could have you could even have like a ZK verifier, like it verifies ZK proofs alongside ETH validators. And then you could have like economics claims boost. Validators can supply economic value as collateral for a claim without a governing party. So it's like a decentralized EigenLayer. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, just to wrap up, we think like, just to wrap up, we see like two universes for preconfirmations. We think initially they'll be used for high value transactions like high value mints. This will be for the first few months of preconfirmations while pricing is being figured out. They'll initially be more costly, so like on the higher side, like a few dollars. But I think over time they will become used by everyone. So the ideal state is that, like Solana on Ethereum, you will get an instant Etherscan receipt, and then soon after, like orbit committees and single slot finality, within 5 seconds you'll get a hard finality guarantee. So yeah, we think that within the next year, this year preconfirmations will be out, so you'll be able to get like instant transaction confirmations on mainnet. But you'll still need to wait. You'll still need to wait for a few blocks for finality, but over time that finality will go down to 5 seconds. So yeah, this will make Solana this will make Ethereum L1 competitive with alt L1s like Solana. And then with based rollups, we will try to bring some of the transaction volume back to be sequenced by Ethereum L1. The centralized sequencer rollups kind of drag away the transaction volume. So like Base and Arbitrum make $100 million a year off sequencing fees, each sequencing and priority fees, and this is all taken away from the L1, from Ethereum L1. So this is part of an effort to like make Ethereum L1 faster and then make it more profitable at bringing back sequencing. Yeah, that's about the presentation. Yeah, Honored.
Hey, thanks for the talk. I probably missed this, but can you talk again about like how confirmations are like relate to like preconfs relate to like slashing? Like how do I what are the consequences of like reneging on a preconfirmation I've made?
Yeah, so there's so one is you have a preconfirmation registry where every validator registers, so they put up some collateral, so they put up their 32 ETH. And then you have like restaked guarantees. So LRTs put up collateral on behalf of trusted proposers. So the restaking protocols, so someone like EtherFi, like we're integrating with EtherFi, CalpDAO, we're integrating CalpDAO, and then yeah, the other ones like Puffer, Pufferify actually is working on their own base rollup, and yeah. So the idea here is that they will back trusted validators with restake, and then the validator must put up 32 ETH collateral to back their claims. Yeah, so if there's an intentional fault, then the validator gets slashed, and then depending
and this
on
slashing happens like in, or not only the slashing, but also the pre-confirmations are logged like on chain.
yeah, it's
This
an
is
optimistic. Yeah, it's an optimistic challenge. So preconf kind of looks like a preconf TX, looks like a receipt, looks like this. It's like you have a slot number, then you have a transaction hash. That's your receipt, and then the challenge is like my TX hash was not included in slot number, and then this is it's like an optimistic challenge on chain. So like an ABS handles the slashing condition. Yeah, so the pre-conf receipt looks pretty simple. It's just like that you guarantee that your transaction will include a certain slot. And if it's a slot is a block, a slot and a block are the same thing on Ethereum. And then if it's not included, then you can just claim. Then you can just submit a challenge to the ABS, and someone will get slashed. I think you're on. Are you on mute or?
no, sorry, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Obviously, EigenLayer right now uses like EigenLayer uses like similar to slashing as Solana. Like so it's like yeah. Obviously, like EigenLayer has yet to implement slashing in prod. So they use effectively if there's like misbehavior, then they like kind of kick you off the LRT platform. We think like proposers in general, so like the majority of them run flashbots. Like 90% of proposers run flashbots. We think 90% of proposers will eventually run some sort of pre-conf protocol. We think like even on Solana mainnet, like slashing isn't actually implemented. Even on Solana mainnet right now, they use like they call it delayed slashing, where they will actually like stop delegating you stake if you misbehave. And they haven't had many issues. So I don't see like the threat of slashing like I don't see the hardcore threat of slashing being super necessary. Yeah, like it's worked on Solana. Cool. Yeah, these are pretty good questions. Yeah, these are pretty good questions. I think like pretty excited about pre-confs. I think like at some point, I think at some point like the majority of transactions will be pre-confs. And it'll like feel a lot more like Solana. So it'll be like a continuous stream rather than like closing block times. Also, if we like make the block times at least like faster, you can do other cool stuff. Like you're essentially out of protocol making the block times faster, so you can have like in Tycho's use case, they're literally extracting MEV like every 3 seconds rather than every like 12 seconds. Like they literally have like off-chain like block builders that extract MEV every like 3 seconds. So they're just able to extract MEV faster and probably more of it. So you can do like you can build on top of this. Anirudh.
Sorry, another question. This might be kind of dumb, but let's say like I get an execution pre-conf for like many slots in the future, or you said that that's not possible, right?
Yeah. Like execution preconfs themselves have like a heavy off-chain component, and they're only there for like the next block. the proposer.
Yeah.
So like if you're doing like Uniswap transaction, you're saying like, I want to execute preconf that like I get like Uniswap trade like $1, $1 USD for like 3,000 ETH, and I only want 2% slippage. Like no one in the world can guarantee you that within like 12 blocks that like
Right.
you'll be able to get that, right?
So I guess maybe not even execution preconf, but just generally with preconfs, like what if I have a situation where like I maybe this is like more out of like ignorance for how preconfs work and what the contract with like a preconf is, but like what if I submit something and I get a receipt, but then like in the slot where it's supposed to be executed, that transaction is no longer valid because I've like drained my wallet or I don't know, like the price has moved or something, like so that transaction can't be executed. Is it like generally do you still include, like does the proposer still include this transaction now as like a failing transaction to avoid getting like slashed?
So you're saying like yeah, so if you get an execution preconf and if you get an
No,
execution preconf,
like I guess in this case like an inclusion preconf.
inclusion preconf is just like I'll try my best. Inclusion preconf is just like is like very easy for the proposer to give. There's no guarantees on how what the end state will be. So if the transaction reverts, you'll just get like a failure and nothing
So
will change.
like if I'm like extremely cynical about like the proposers or builders on this chain, like I should basically restrict my use of like inclusion preconfs well in the future to only transactions that like that I can only that, like sorry that are, how do I say this, like to cases where like I'm the only person that can control like whether this transaction, like whether the state will permit this transaction in the future. Like if there's any dependency on like some other party, then like there's always some risk that like it'll revert.
Yeah, if you're doing like yeah, the best use case is like if you want to mint an NFT in the next slot, you can just like get an inclusion. Obviously like someone else could have minted all of them first, but that's unlikely. For something like a DEX transaction, yeah. Something you should not use a preconfirmation for is like you should not use a preconfirmation for like an overly sensitive transaction, because there's already a proposer that can view your transaction. There's another party, a proposer that sees your transaction, can like act on that information. So if you're like yeah, if you're selling like a large amount of ETH or something, um, like someone will you'll still get front run via MEV. Like there's someone who can see it, so like maybe someone could do an OTC trade or something to reduce your execution price. You'll still get front run on all your transactions. And then this is still centralized because this is still somewhat centralized because you're sending the transaction directly to the proposer. But this is more similar to using a base rollup because the centralization is like for the 12 seconds, and then after 12 seconds, the state's saved. So this is like less. This is like arguably like more decentralized than using an L2 like Arbitrum, but less decentralized than using like Ethereum state. There's also some risk like the proposer could front run you. If you're using inclusion preconf, then you get a best effort attempt to include the transaction. So something like it, like for most everyday user transactions, you're probably okay doing it. It'll be pretty cheap too. So it'll be like 1 to 10 cents, ideally over time. So it should be pretty cheap. Yeah, but it's a best effort inclusion. So don't use it for like DEX transactions where the slippage params are very tight, like for several blocks in advance.
Sorry, this is like kind of minutia, but like in a case where like a transaction is no longer like valid, but I've already gotten like inclusion, like is it still the case that the proposer has to include like the transaction and it fails, like just to avoid getting like slashed for like quote unquote not including it?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they have to like prove like on chain, like the block should have your transaction in it. Yeah, so they would have to include it. Yeah, and there's no way for like, it's really hard. It's really like messy and complicated for someone to write the logic that like that like they like guess the transaction would fail like a priori. Like it would be too messy to like
Right.
yeah, to guess that the
But
transaction will
like
fail.
I don't understand in this case, like why, what's like an example of a case where you would send a preconf for like many blocks in advance as opposed to just like waiting until the block before checking if the transaction's valid and then sending the preconf request?
If I want to like pay for coffee, like yeah, it's like credit card transactions. Like when you pay for coffee, you get like an instant confirmation, but it settles like a few days later. So like yeah, if I was to send you money right now, I would just get an inclusion preconf and then go about my day. And then like yeah, like obviously like a block like a reorg could cause even the inclusion preconf won't save you from a reorg, but reorgs are very rare on Ethereum.
Or,
And
I
with
mean, I
single
guess
slot,
in that case, like in the example that you gave, like why would I not just like um I guess we're working under some constraint where like the transaction can't go through like next block. Like why can't you just like make a preconf for like, next immediate block or like, 5 seconds later instead of like 2 days later?
I mean, you definitely can't do it for 2 days. I mean, usually the preconf is for like 32 slots in advance, so that's like 15 seconds times
But
32,
like, I guess, is there a use case for doing preconfs like
8
multiple
minutes.
slots in advance? Because like I can always like fudge the state of like the chain so that the transaction's no longer valid or like it seems to me like there's no advantage for either party. Like you could just wait until the slot before you wanted to land and then just send the preconf request for the next immediate slot.
Yeah, the reason that is because like over time, like 90% of proposers will give you a preconf, but initially, like today on Interstate, we have like 20% of Ethereum validators interested in using us right now. So there are situations where like the next available preconfer is only like it's like number 6 of 32.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense.
But,
But
like over
in the
time,
long run, you think it'll skew more towards immediate preconfs?
like, in the long term, like 90% of validators, like 90% of validators run flashbots, 90% of validators will run a preconf.
Mhm.
So you'll be able to get one like pretty much instantly.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But yeah, if no one's available, like we can't give it to you for a while. And the longest preconf will be like 8 minutes from now, like barring the very rare edge case that no one's available. In which case, it's saved somewhere off chain and then add it back on chain. But yeah, it's highly unlikely that within the 8 minute window you won't get a preconf. Like yes, it's just improbable. Cool. Yeah.
We're almost at time. So unless there are
Yeah.
more questions, I think we can wrap it up here.
Yeah, thought the discussion was really cool. Thanks for the questions. I'm available on Telegram here. Yeah, hi Chin. Oh, okay, that was clapping. Cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah,
Sorry.
guys.
All right.
Yeah, awesome discussion. Yeah, I dropped a Telegram. Would love to kind of follow up and get the conversation going. But yeah, thanks for listening to me speak. And yeah,
It was a great talk. Thank you.
Cool.
Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy your rest of your week.
See you guys. Cheers.